Voilà, je vais juste vous demander de l'applaudir très fort. Il va vous parler d'Early Stage Startup et c'est maintenant.
Merci, Hugo. That's probably the last French I'll speak for a while. Pardon me if you can't understand my English. Sorry. But anyways, thanks everyone for coming out here, especially on this rainy Friday afternoon. I know you guys probably want to head out of Paris after this, for your holiday. So I'll just, be quick. And before I get started, I guess a little bit background about Strikingly. I'm curious how many people here have heard of Strikingly before. Oh wow, that's a lot. Have you used Strikingly? Great. Just very quick introduction. So we are a website builder that's focused on very simple one-pager websites, and we started in San Francisco back in 2012. Yeah, and we graduated from Y Combinator in fall of 2013, and we've been active since then. And part of my reason here also is to meet some of our users and friends, because we started in the Valley, and then we moved to Asia to grow our office, and we're kind of just global, a very global product. So I'd love to hear ideas after this about Strikingly and France and Paris, for example. That would be great. So today, the reason I'm here is to just to share with you guys how we got started. Really, it's a very kind of personal story about how Strikingly got started. Again, one more question is, how many people here are entrepreneurs? You think yourself, startup people, awesome. How many people here have a product already? You kind of have a startup, awesome. And how many people here think that they have a good product that's already at product market fit? And they're just ready for growth and put all their money and not so much, right? That's awesome. Well, the topic that I want to present today is I'm actually very focused on the very early people, so the very early products, and how we all hear about growth hacking a lot. Growth hacking, the new term, Andrew Chen, whatever. But really, I think growth at a very early stage is very unique for every startup. And the topic I want to talk today is growth hacking for very early stage startups. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to say is actually, you don't need to be a growth hacker at first, at least. That's actually from Andrew Chen, the guy who kind of coined the term growth hacker. And so why is that, right? So we all hear, oh, we need to grow, we need people to work on it. Because really at the end of the day, growth is something that you want to look at long term. And to have a long-term growth, you need a product that will get you the customers, but also retain them. Have them stick around with you, not for like a week or 2 weeks, right? You want them to be here around. They want to come back. They want to, they want to return to your service, but also help you to grow. So become your core engine for growth. So you want users, right, who just will not just say, hey, I'm striking, I'll try it out, but you want people who really love your product. So the first topic I say is, why not? So because really when you first get started, you don't really have a lot of people, users, or data, really. Because when we talk about growth hacking, you want to look at it in a very growth and data sense. You want to be able to be as analytical as possible, right? But when you first get started, you get maybe a few hundred people, a few thousand, but it's not really enough for you to be confident and say, hey, this is the right approach, this is the right channel for me to grow, right? You're just kind of figuring it out, and maybe something work and something don't. So, and also when you optimize, you don't really see the effect, right? So say you have people from, you have your parents, you have your friends, come and use your product, but that's not going to help you to optimize for long-term growth. So I think very importantly, I think the first lesson is to really think about doing things that don't scale. This is a very famous term that's coined by Paul Graham, the founder of YC. So every single startup, when they first get into YC, we're told like, okay, now what? Just go out there and make a product that people love. So the first thing is don't do things that you think will scale, right? You do things that don't scale. One example is, we've all heard of Airbnb and how big they are, how they're like, taking over all the hotels. But when they first got started, really they were just, a bunch of dudes trying to like start something very small. What they actually did was, while they were in YC, they actually had to fly to New York City every single weekend there to come and just knock on doors on every single neighborhood. They just went on doors and, hey, we're this new company, you want to be a host? And, for the few people who accepted them, they let them into their houses, and they just like took pictures of the apartments and, put them on their website, and then, went to the next one and did the same thing. That wasn't scalable. We've all heard about stories probably about how they hacked Craigslist, how they used their API and kind of just grew very, very rapidly. But really, when they first got started, they basically just went door by door to knock on doors, right? Same thing with a lot of other startups, like Tinder, for example. When they first started, they just basically went to every college campus and talked to all the sorority groups, because they felt like, we have a lot of hot ladies on this app. You have a lot of guys coming in and trying to check out the app too. So it was just one by one. It was very unscalable at first when you think about it, and also just very hard. But really, essentially, when you're at a startup, that's what you have to do. So I'm also just going to share a little bit about what we did as Strikingly. So, we have this landing page. So we have users come in here, and then you see this user come to your landing page, they sign up, it's all good, and then we expect them to select a theme to create a website, right? But suddenly, boom, they just dropped, they churned. What do you do? Do you look at your Google Analytics? Do you look at your mixed panel and see, oh, hey, what happens? What's the bounce rate? No, you don't have the data, right? When you first get started, what did we do? We just talked to them. Seriously, this is really the best way to do it. This sounds pretty simple, or doesn't make sense, but we actually did. And we actually just emailed people who dropped, period. So this is actually a great way to find your potential users and to engage them. So a little trick about this is you want to be very targeted. And you want to make sure that you're not spamming people. They came to your service, they sign up, they give you your email, which is a very personal thing. You don't want to spam them. So we want to make sure that it's very personal, again, not scalable. We just emailed very targeted. We kind of look at the data and see, oh, this person, she's a student from Harvard, with the Harvard email address, and we just talk to her. Our users, our founders, we recently graduated from college as well. We try to get this personal touch with our emails. We made it short and personal and very honest. We didn't know what the hell was going on, and we wanted to be able to say, hey, we want to learn from you, help us. And we did. We used just simple tools like Vero and customer.io to just kind of get the user emails and just send it out. And response rates were great. A lot better than what we're doing today for our engagement emails, but it was very personal, it was very honest and simple. And then the second point I want to make today is find your super fans. Again, with this growth rhetoric, we're going to think about how do we get to the first 10,000 users, the first million, the first 10 million, first 100 million. But really, when you first get started, you're not going to get those numbers. And it doesn't really matter to get those numbers. We hear a lot of startups, oh, they have like 1 million users in 2 weeks. So what? Who happens to be them? What happens with them after a while? But really, the key to growth, again, is to finding that 100 people that will love your product, and not the 10,000 or 100,000 that will kind of use your product and leave. So you want the 100 people to really love you. So what do? We basically just added everyone, the first 2,000 users on Facebook as friends. It's very personal. We added them. We chatted with them. It was our support system, right? We didn't have like some fancy support system, but we just basically used Facebook to engage with them. Again, very simple, very basic stuff. And we talked to them constantly. And we responded to their personal features, requests, and a lot of things. And we found a lot of super fans. Here's a story. Here's an example. So it was, I think, pretty late one night, and we were all working, and all of a sudden, we got this notification on Facebook and said, so and so commented on your Facebook page, and we're like, okay, cool, let's check it out. And then it turns out that a user wrote a very angry comment on our Facebook page, and it's like, hey, you guys, I've been trying to email you for the last 3 hours. I got no response. Something's wrong with my site. I'm very angry, and you guys suck, basically. We're like, whoops, a bunch of engineers. How do we deal with this? It was our first crisis, as you can call it. And then what's worse was that we had other users comment on our Facebook page, and this guy, he was super angry. He went on and commented on every other people's comment below. And it was like, you guys like Strikingly? This is the worst company ever. Leave them. These guys suck. They don't answer to my emails. They don't do anything. Leave them. And we're like, oops, this is getting out of hand. We have 100 users, and suddenly we're going to lose all of them. This is really bad. And we're like, whoa, trying to figure out what's the issue. We try to check out his site. But while we were doing that, what's surprising to us is another user that this guy kind of just commented on started to respond. And he was like, oh, wait, you can't find these guys? They're usually very good at responses. They're probably busy. Can I help you instead? So we have this user just turning back again, becoming our support agent. We're like, whoa, what's going on? And he was like, yeah, can we help you? And then he's like, yeah, my site is down. And this angry guy was like, my site is down, and I can't figure out, and these guys won't help me. They're like, wait, maybe it's your ISP issue. Did you go into your domain? He's just becoming the expert. We're like, wow, this guy was a lot faster than us. And before we even got to respond, a third user came in and responded and was like, hey, yeah, I actually want to help you too. These guys are great, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out the issue really wasn't our fault. The user, he didn't really set up his domain properly. But the point of the story was that we had these people who were engaged with us and who were willing to spend their own time to engage with our other users. And it turns out that all three of them became super users for Strikingly. They're still our users today. We're still talking to them, and they really help us to kind of get more users in that way. So again, think about who are your super fans, and go for them. Make a product that will work for them. Ask them. Another thing I want to point out is when we first started a product, we're going to hear a lot of requests from people. We want to add this, we want to add that. You're going to hear people drop, oh yeah, you guys are bad. I'm going to this other competitor, and you're like, oh wait, maybe I need to be like that person or that product, and then you go do the same for another one, and you just become very confused. But really, I think the important thing is find your super fans and build a product for them instead. Don't try to listen to everybody, because you can't do that. And while talking to our super fans, we found some very similar stuff with them, and we felt that we actually, as a company, as a startup, we had a lot of similarities that we share with these people. So basically, we're a bunch of young and aspiring people who really want to make a difference in this world. And so what we did was we started to engage users and talk like them as peers, and we started to put things like that on social media. Like this quote from Dr. King. We got us a lot of likes. Similar to these other things, just very inspirational, very kind of things that we ourselves want to share and want to talk about. That got us a lot of likes on Facebook, as opposed to the other kind of typical stuff that other people put on them. So these people just ended up becoming the core users for Strikingly. We found them, we realized who they are, and then we started to engage them and build the product around them. So I think that's very important. The third point is kind of interesting. Is how do we go beyond your parents and your neighbors and your friends? So one thing that is very helpful for very early stage startup is press releases. So getting on the media, basically. So and that's very hard as a startup, not just because and not just if you doesn't mean that you went to YC you're gonna get a lot of press. We thought that was the case, You get like one post on TechCrunch, and that's about it. Everything else, you have to hustle on your own. And that's basically what we did. And this is the best way to get your first group of users. So, and I think that's a very interesting process to this. So basically to start from small to go big. And when we first started, basically we just look at very industry specific medias that kind of relates to our product, our own kind of startup scene, because that's kind of what we start off as well, helping other startups get started. So we basically just approach them one by one, and try to get onto them. And we talked to journalists, we talked to forums, and we got on a bunch of things like Hacker News, Betalist, and Quora. We spent a lot of time getting engaged. I think today everyone's trying to get on Product Hunt, and that's another very important channel. And these kind of guys got us about the first 10K users, and it was very non-scalable, hands-on, but that gets the job done, and you get your first batch of users that you can kind of start to optimize and try to shift your product a little bit. And I have some additional resources below. I can share this link to you guys later, that you can kind of find where to get started. But that's all very, very helpful when you first get started. And the next interesting thing is after that, we exhausted the list. We had to just try to be more creative and find more ways to get into more mainstream media. So what we did really was to, again, hustle Google. We wrote scripts. We did a lot of things trying to get to the contact people for bigger medias like these ones here. And what we basically did was just scrape the information. I know today you guys might have tried out like mTurks. That's a very useful channel to get contact. But basically, again, just like talking to our users, write very simple, targeted emails to them and say, hey, we're Strikingly, we have this cool idea we'd like to share with you. Would you like a conversation? Very short, very sweet. And hear back from maybe 5% or even less. And then once you get on one, it's easier to get on another. So we first got it on the next web, and it just kind of helped us from there. The funny thing. So now you can see we got on the New York Times, Sports, and a bunch of stuff. The interesting story though is media is not always great. For example, the case about New York Times is, you guys probably haven't read the story about us on New York Times, but it was really bad. It was about this, bubble in the valley and how anybody can just become an entrepreneur. And so our CEO, David, his parents found out that he got on New York Times, were so happy. They printed out the page and framed it and put it on his room next to his diploma from the University of Chicago. But good thing they didn't read English, because the article was really bad. But it got us on there. It was helpful. But again, this exposure will help you to get to the 10K to 20K users, and it just takes you hard work and dedication to get on one. It's not that easy, I have to say, and also. I'm not sure about the case in France, especially. The competition for us back in the Valley was intense. Everyone wanted to get on these. And New York Times don't want to bash every single startup, so find one way or another to get on them. So quick summary of what I want to say today. Basically, just do things that don't scale when you first get started. Don't think about fancy metrics or think about something cool like hack the API or some other things. But when you first get started, really, it was very simple. Do things that don't scale. So number one, talk to your users. Be very personal and very honest and upfront to them about your product and what you do. And then out of those people, find your super fans. You just need 100. They'll help you in your direction. They'll help you in your team. Or sometimes you just get very frustrated. Startup can be a very frustrating experience. You're just sitting there and you build something, and it's just like, wait, what if nobody used this thing? It can be very mind challenging. But finding those power users, those people that love you, will in a way very emotionally. I'm not saying that startup should be an emotional process, but sometimes it is. emotionally support you and help you and guide you to the right way. And I think nobody really talks about this kind of emotional passage for startups, but it can be. There's a lot of up and downs, and you're gonna encounter a lot of difficulties. But finding those people that engaging with them will be very helpful. And then to grow from there, first step is again get to the PR, getting to the media and the press that you need, and that was really helpful for our case. And then it just helped us grow from there, and we're still growing today. And yeah, so just a quick ad time, but we're hiring. So if you're interested in working with us for a YC-backed startup, global company, a young company, drop us a line or visit our careers page. And we love everyone. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. I'm actually more interested in engaging with you guys to share with you anything about what I talked today, or about growth hacking in general, or about our YC experience. So thank you all.
Cool. On a des questions. Enfin, we can take the question with the mic. So if you want, ask the first question. There you go.
Hello. I was wondering, what kind of question did you ask to your users when they dropped, when they choose the template? I mean, how it was like, why did you drop, or what kind of question, did you put on?
That's a good question. I think when you first get started, one thing you have to ask yourself is, what is the problem you're solving? I think that's a very important question, and to always have that in your head, because you're going to hear a lot of noise. So especially when you ask people why they drop, they're going to tell you a lot of things. Also, when you talk to people, your power users, they're going to tell you a lot of things. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is, what's the problem you're solving? Not just for a pitch, for evaluation, but really when you think about the product. And what we tried to ask ourselves is, is website building something we can do? And we felt like it's something that can be simplified, and we're helping people have online presence. Everyone here in this room, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you need we think that you need an online presence when people want to search for your ideas or whatnot. And we think that that's the problem we're solving. And the solutions in this world today isn't simple enough, And a lot of people couldn't do it because of this barrier. So we want to solve that problem. So when we have people drop us, you're gonna hear. We heard a lot of things like, you guys are too expensive. You guys are, you just can't do very little, or like, you can't customize your own colors. You can't add videos or whatnot. But ultimately, we want to realize the problem we're solving is to make a very simple solution to online presence. So we hear a lot of things, but we really only listen to the ones that kind of engage with what we wanted to do. And here's another story of for example, we heard a lot of people leave because they're like, oh, you guys, when we first got started, our templates are very restrictive, right? So we want to be as fast as possible. So we didn't have a lot of options for people. And then we heard a lot of people say, hey, I want to leave because, I can't change change fonts on your website. Everyone looks the same. It's just very dumb, and we want to go somewhere else. So we're like, well, that's easy. let's just add more fonts to our pool, and we did that. But then we found out that nobody switched the fonts. We had one font, and then we added 10, and then everyone kept the same one. We're like, wait, what's going on? Do we need to call? Is it the only 5 people who left who gave us a response? And we talked to them. They're like, oh yeah, actually, we'll come back, but we'll still use your default font. We're like, wait, what? What's going on? So confusing, right? But essentially, when we got to engage people more, we start to realize, really, the essential thing that people wanted is to have an online presence that's unique, that's a bit different. And how do you become a little different? You have options. So you understand that you're going to look different from everyone else. But the funny thing is that people would think in a way that you don't expect them to. And that's also the thing you learn at startups is the essential thing that people wanted is to be different as others. But they feel like, oh, if there's options, somebody else will change it. So I don't have to change it. I'll keep to the default font, and that's what the designers chose. That's going to be awesome. So we're like, okay, so having the options is great. And when you look at some of our competitors, for example, or similar products, they have tons of options. We have like 200 fonts, and we're like, no way someone's going to be sane enough to go through that whole list. So our thing is always to keep to the simplicity, but answer to our users' requests. So we try to find this fine balance, listening to people, but essentially finding the core problem that we're trying to solve, the simple and the unique, and keep it to that and not expand, and with all this other noise that we hear. So.
Thank you, Michael, for the presentation. The point is really interesting about PR hacks, and maybe people here would be interested in a more detailed hack relating to PR, maybe using Twitter, or well, how do you find emails of journalists or people like this?
The question was, how do we hack the PR on our case, and how do we find the context for journalists? Again, it was quite simple. We kind of just scripted Google and found through like ads, like we look for adsomething.com, and journalists, they love to put their names out there, and a lot of them have personal websites, and you just basically find some, and then you do a lot of research. You want to make sure it's personal again. You don't want to just look like a spam. Hey, I have a startup. Can you get me on your website? Can you get me on newspaper? Nobody's going to respond to that. You want to be very personal. You want to be very, you feel like you've done the research and approach them one by one. I think getting to the contact isn't really hard. I mean, you can do it in the manual way. Again, there's mTurks, very useful tools. I'm not sure if people have heard about it. Basically, it's just human power APIs to help you to get information that you need online. So just people that will help you to get, you want to get journalist emails or whatnot. They'll help you whatever's legal, at least I think. So getting that, I think, was the easier part. But getting the response rate later was harder, because these people, they get a lot of responses too. So we want to make sure to be very personable and directed. Again, one more thing is, start with your own niche. So when you have more press release, you have more backups, it's better to approach people. When we told people, hey, we're on the New York Times, it was a lot easier to get other journalists on board, yeah. Yes?
Hi, Michael. Thank you for the presentation. At what point did you realize that you were not going to attain the growth that you really wanted? Meaning, 1,000, 2,000, that's the hack that you're doing, but you want to get beyond that. What point did you realize that you were not going to attain it with these hacks, and what did you do about it? Like, what kind of tools did you use, etc.?
Great. The question was, how do we define a early stage startup, or like a startup that's ready for growth? That's one thing we can really focus on, growth. That's a great question. I don't think it's a perfect answer, but really you want to be able to tell yourself, hey, I have a product that's already product market fit, right? So something that you can think that doesn't require a lot of these very non-scalable hustling to get the users, to get to the next checkpoint. And one important keyword, I'm sure has been talked about here at the Growth Hacker program is retention. So have you guys heard about the Pirates metrics thing, like AARR? Acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and then referral. So I think that the trick here is to get to the retention as quickly as possible. So it's going to be hard, because you need a lot of data for this to really understand. But once you understand that your product is organically growing, you have this very healthy retention curve. So you have users who come in and stick around and not just going to leave, in like a week or two. Once you're comfortable in saying, hey, my product is ready for that, I think that's when you're ready for a next stage of growth. And so basically you have a product market fit product. And it depends on your product, obviously. For us in the SaaS business, our lifespan for a user is usually quite long. People don't usually change their website builder, every few weeks. So we want to be able to make sure that people can remain in a very kind of healthy and retained retainable fashion before we can say, hey, so my job here is to come in here and say, how do you find that one channel, like for example, Airbnb with Craigslist, to really step on the pedal and grow. So I think for your case, really think about the retention metric. Is it like people coming in is there weekly active users? Is it your monthly active users? Is it a churn rate? It's different for every company, but really I think the key word, I think if I want you guys to take home today is retention. Don't focus so much on acquisition or activation at the very beginning, because you're gonna have a lot of people come in, play around and leave, and that's not very helpful for you at all. That's gonna have you a lot of false hopes. You're gonna feel, oh wow, we're doing quite well, but you know, ultimately growth is about the long term, and you want to make sure you keep those users as much as possible. Yeah. Oh.
Well, thank you. You were talking about the problem that you're solving. So my question is regarding your customer development method. Basically, did you do customer development interviews? If so, how long, and how long did it take from the first interview to the first MVP?
So the question was, how do we engage with our users in the very beginning? How do we interview them to get to the MVP? I think that's a great question. It's also a very hard lesson learned. A little background is Striking, as we see today, is actually our third product. We had two products that failed miserably in the beginning. And they were quite different, but the one lesson we learned was to talk to your users, the first point I made, because when we first got started, we didn't talk to anybody. We were just a bunch of engineers who just like created a product. Hey, somebody gotta be using this, right? This is awesome. And we realized like, hey, nobody's using this, because we talked to no one. And we learned that lesson. And when we first started, we just talked to everybody we could via every channel that we could, mostly on Facebook, via email, face-to-face, coffee time. We're still doing coffee time today, even at our scale, to get to the very personal thing. And I think David, our founder, he talked to at least 20,000 users in the very few months of our starting, just to really get to that answer to the question: is, are we solving the right problem? Are we the right product for these people? And through all kinds of channels, and I think it's again a very unscalable but a necessary step to take. And I don't think everybody needs to talk to 20,000 users, because that's not fun. But I think getting that quantity is quite important to you. And then when we go bigger, there's easier ways to, via surveys or more automated ways to do that. But even today, we want to make sure all engineers, for example, keep talking to our users. So when you file a support ticket to Strikingly, we'll have our support happiness officers get to you. But the people who are going to talk to you in solving the problem are our engineers, because we want to make sure that our engineers talk to our users and understand the problem and the product they're building. So I think that's also very important to not just do it in the beginning, but also keep that process as long as you can. Once you have a very separate process, you have to support people, talking to users, and then everyone else just doing this thing. I think it's going to be a challenge for you to grow even faster. So our purpose was to keep that engagement and process as long as we can, as scalable as we can, before we kind of figure out something else. But so far, we've been learning that this is a very good way to make sure that not just one or two people in the team, but everybody do that. So I think that's quite important. Yeah.
Hi. At early stage, did you rely on surveys and polls? If yes, with open or closed questions?
Sorry, what was the question?
With open or closed questions in the surveys?
It was, at least in the very beginning, very open. So again, we didn't have very targeted things. Again, we were kind of confused about the right questions to ask people, and the key was to really try to be as open as possible. But like I said earlier, is to get to the essence of what someone is trying to get to. Because again, one thing for you to do as a founder is to read beyond the lines of the user. So when they say, give us 100 fonts, don't just add 100 fonts. Think about what are they trying to do. They want customization. They want to be unique. So today it could be fonts, tomorrow it could be colors, next day it could be something else. But you have to understand and go beyond. So having an open question, that's perfectly fine when you first get started, and then read beyond the lines and get to like a conclusion, and then maybe at that point you kind of have a more focused questionnaire for people to answer to kind of validate your hypothesis and say, okay, my hypothesis is that striking is not easy enough. Everyone is just telling us, how difficult it is, and then we want to say, where is it not easy enough? Is it when you first start up, or is it when you first go into our editor, or is it when you first publish your page? And then that's when you can kind of get more directed and say, hey, be more specific with the questions and use them. And there are a lot of tools for you to use today, like Wufu. Kevin Hill is one of our ambassadors as well. That's a great tool for you guys to try out and engage users, or SurveyMonkey and Google Forms. So there are a lot of tools, but I think when you first get started, I would say be as broad as possible, and read beyond the lines for that. Yeah, I think that's. Oh, hi.
Yes. Hi, Michael. I just wanted to testify, because you said do things that don't scale and talk to users, and indeed in early 2013, like 2 years ago, I subscribed to Strikingly, and I received a mail from David Chen, the CEO. It was a short mail, but very, very efficient and surprising to get a mail from the CEO. He said, "Hi, I'm Dev Chen, I'm CEO of Strikingly. I noticed you created an account, and I would want to thank you personally." And so he asked me for feedback, and it was very efficient. I replied, and he said thanks. And, I had no question, but just to found it was very efficient to get away to.
You know what? We're still doing that today, and we still read every single response from users, because, again, like I said earlier, we don't want to leave that loop again. The new users, these are for new users. We want to hear everyone's intention when they first get started, and the ones who've been around for a while, and the one who leave us and maybe do something else. We want to really learn what's going on in a very qualitative kind of way, and we're still doing that. And yes, the question was, is there an automated way to kind of engage their users? Yes, when you first get started, obviously it's going to be very manual, because you don't know the right questions, you don't know the right approach, and basically we also didn't have the money to afford fancy tools to help us to automate that. But as you get to scale, there are tools to automate processes. For example, for email, for example, you can use MailChimp, and we use Vero, the one I mentioned earlier, that kind of helps to build a very specific kind of, we call it a drip marketing process. So it basically sets up a bunch of very action and event-based emails for your users, depending on where they are, what actions have taken. So again, if you guys are familiar with Amazon and what they do in email, it's fantastic, right? So based on your actions, they will give you a very targeted email to kind of address your needs. So that's kind of the tools that we use out there. But again, in the very beginning, it was very personal. So I think that's one point where you kind of realize, oh, hey, I need to automate this. There's going to be a lot of work just sending emails every day. So yes.
Hello? Yes. This is just about a resource that you mentioned. When something about looking for the contacts for the journalist, you mentioned
Mturk.
Will that be in the things that you will make available?
Yes, I don't think I have it in here, but I'll definitely.
But you said Antwerp?
Mturk. Mturk. It's a service owned by Amazon right now, And again, basically, it's a human-powered API. If you're familiar with APIs, is
the Mechanical Turk thing.
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Mechanical Turk. That's the full name. But it's very helpful to get information that you need online.
Last question, and then
Sure. I think we have a friend here.
Merci, thank you. What feature did you develop or think that you radically change in your product based on the things that your superfan and your droppers said to you?
Thanks. So I think the biggest or the most major feature that we added based on that was a blog feature, which actually took a lot of time for us to really figure out because so, usually when you think about website, you think about blog, and then you think about a lot of other stuff like e-commerce or form builders. But essentially, like I said before, we want it to be very simple, and we want to be very simple and straightforward. So we've always kind of differ against the ideas of adding more like heavier, features on our website, and so the blog was kind of talked about for almost a year, and it was never going anywhere because we were all very against it. But we just kept hearing people leaving and power users, hey, I have this awesome idea. I have your website on Strikingly, but I can't engage with my users. I want to engage with people. We have a lot of people. They have a new product or they have a great idea and they want to keep updating their site. So basically, they just have to add more sections to our pages until it gets just too long and too messy. And they're like, hey, this is not the best solution. We want something better and simpler. And then we realized that. So for the very power users, the people who love us, they're going to be engaging with our tool every single day. So they want to be able to update it as frequent as possible. So I think at the end of the day, we kind of just decided to test out a very simple version. So we then added a simple blog to our website where it's basically just a very simple section on your website that you kind of engage and update your site and talk to your users, and also just add that to your the mailing list, and not something that we don't want. The thing is, we don't want people to think about something that's very conventionally heavy. You have to think about SEO. Your URL. You have to think about your categories and your. So we didn't want any of that. We wanted the editing process to be as simple as possible, and we want you to be able to just do something. And that's all from hearing from our users who both churn and love us. And the one good thing about that process was that we actually, through the process of building a blog, we actually learned about even easier and simpler process of adding content online, basically on the website. So if you check out the Strikingly editor and our blog editor, you can feel like maybe you kind of like the blog editing process a bit more, which I personally do, because since we've built the first editor, we realized that the blog, the way we think about content isn't very structured anymore. People want to be free, they want to be mobile. So you want to be able to, hey, boom, I want to add a text, boom, I want to add a bunch of pictures, videos, and form and whatnot. So through that process, we actually learned and have built a better editing process, which we are in the works for our next version of Strikingly, actually. So it's a good process, and we talked to thousands of users in the whole process. Just specifically on a blog, we had a team to focus on that because, again, we really didn't want to. It sounds like a very simple process, but we didn't want to make our product too complicated and more going into the heavier solutions. So that was something, and the result was that we saw a lot of improvement in the retention. People were coming back, there to edit their blog. We had people who only use Striking for a blog, which we didn't think people would in the beginning. So it's a lot of interesting discovery after the fact, but before that we were kind of hesitant, but we listened to our users, and that worked out really well for us. Yeah.
Thanks. We're gonna close it.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks. And we're gonna chill for a few and then.
Sure. Actually, before I end, is it possible I take a quick selfie with everyone?
Oh, yeah.
With struggling selfie. And I have a bunch of stickers here, struggling stickers for you guys, a little swag if you want to put on your laptops and advertise us for free. I love that. All right, so I'm just going to take a quick selfie. All right. Oh, wait, sorry, one. Thank you all. Thanks for coming. I'll be here for a while, so feel free to ask me any questions.